Welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, always good to be back.
This time we're going to be looking at something,
Kind of huge.
it is, a recent multinational military exercise called Exercise Thunderbolt Convergence.
That's the one.
And I think you had an article, right, from the U.S. Army website.
Yeah, got it right here.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we're going to, I guess, try to figure out what this exercise can tell us about, what NATO is doing right now, what they're capable of.
Absolutely. I think this is going to be really interesting because this wasn't just your average, run-of-the-mill exercise.
Right.
This one was pretty unique.
Yeah.
It took place just very recently, actually, March 24th through the 27th, 2025.
Okay.
And brought together forces from the U.S., Belgium, and Norway.
Wow.
And they all had one very clear goal in mind: to improve how quickly they can deliver precision firepower, and really importantly, how well they can operate together within NATO as, one unified force.
Right. Yeah. That's going to be super important, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Operating as a single unit.
Yeah. Seamless integration.
So one of the things that I saw that kind of jumped out at me when I was reading the article was HIMARS.
Oh, yeah. The HIMARS, right?
The High Mobility Artillery Rocket System.
High Mobility Artillery Rocket System. Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, HIMARS. Much easier.
Yeah, definitely.
So what can you tell us about that? Like, what role did HIMARS play in this whole thing?
Well, it was pretty central to the exercise, and specifically it was about a concept they call HIMARS Rapid Infiltration, or HIRAIN.
HIRAIN. Okay.
Yeah, it's basically all about speed and agility. Getting a HIMARS unit into a position to strike a target fast, hitting it precisely, and then getting out of there just as quickly, all by air, too.
Wow. In and out before anyone even knows what hit them.
Precisely. That's the idea. Deny the enemy any chance to react.
That's wild. So where did all of this take place? I mean, was this just in one location, or?
They actually did this simultaneously in two key places: Ramstein Air Base in Germany and Bardufoss Airport up in Norway.
Two locations at the same time.
Yep, they were running these airlifts concurrently, which just goes to show the level of coordination involved.
That's impressive.
It really is. And the commander of 321 FAR, Lieutenant Colonel Irwin, he had some pretty strong words about why this speed is so vital in today's battlefield.
Yeah, I noticed that his quotes in the article were pretty powerful.
Oh yeah, he really gets it. He said, and I quote, "HIMARS rapid infiltration exercises allow us to rapidly strike targets almost anywhere in the world and leave before the enemy knows where the strike came from."
So basically, hit them before they can even blink.
Exactly. And then he went on to emphasize this point even further. He said, everything now comes down to speed. If you're slow, you're a target. If you're fast, you survive.
That's pretty stark, but I guess that's the reality of modern warfare, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Right.
And it's not just about getting HIMARS in and out quickly. It's also about how these different countries with their own militaries can work together as one cohesive unit. Like Lieutenant Colonel Irwin put it, fighting as one fire force.
So how did Exercise Thunderbolt Convergence actually demonstrate that kind of joint capability? I mean, how did they show they can work together seamlessly?
It was all about interoperability, and this one particular event during the exercise really highlights that. There was this synchronized fires mission involving the US and Belgium. Now picture this. In Norway, they're trying to pinpoint a target, but the information they're using isn't just coming from one source. They're pulling in data from a Norwegian F-35 fighter jet, a Norwegian P-8 maritime patrol aircraft, and even Belgian Special Forces Group soldiers on the ground.
So they're getting this intel from different countries and different branches of the military.
Precisely. It's a true multinational, multi-domain effort.
Wow. So how do they even get all that information to the HIMARS unit? I mean, it's not like they're just shouting coordinates across the ocean.
That's where these joint digital fire systems come into play. Think of them as these secure, real-time networks that allow all these different allies to share critical information, like the exact location of a target.
So they can instantly share targeting data without relying on, radio communication.
Exactly. No more crackling radios and potential for miscommunication. And in this scenario, in Norway, the HIMARS unit was actually tasked with multiple targeting missions, each using a different sensor-to-shooter kill chain.
Kill chain. That sounds intense. What does that even mean?
Basically, it's the whole sequence of events, from when a target is first spotted, that's the sensor part, all the way to when it's actually hit with a weapon, the shooter.
Okay, so it's like the entire process from identifying a threat to taking it out.
You got it. And the exercise really tested out different ways to link up these kill chains, across different countries and military platforms. They used high frequency and beyond line of sight communications with the Belgian Special Forces Group, Norway's Joint Fire Support Element, and even the U.S. Army Airborne Corps fires. It's a super complex system, but when it works, it's incredibly effective.
Sounds like it takes a lot of coordination to get all that to work smoothly.
Oh, absolutely. And, the article mentioned some planning meetings that happened in Brussels even before the exercise kicked off, which just goes to show the level of preparation that goes into something like this.
Yeah, it makes sense. You can't just wing it with something this complex.
No way, not with this kind of operation. So the U.S. and Belgian communications teams, they met in Brussels beforehand, specifically to hash out the whole joint fires execution plan.
So they spent days figuring out how to manage all this data coming in from all these different sources.
Exactly. They had to make sure they could smoothly receive and process all that targeting data coming from those Norwegian units, the jets, the patrol aircraft, and then relay it through those beyond line of sight systems directly to the U.S. Army Fire Direction Centers. That kind of meticulous pre-planning is crucial to make sure everything runs smoothly when it's go time.
So they practiced with the data before actually firing anything. That makes sense.
Yep. Rehearsal is key. And that brings us to the actual demonstrations, showing off what they can do. The High Rain mission was kind of the centerpiece, really showing how NATO can quickly deploy HIMARS over long distances for those precision strikes. So that was the main event, showing they can get the HIMARS where it needs to be fast. Exactly, and they didn't stop there. At Ramstein, while they were getting ready for the airlift, they did what they call combat tempo dry fire operations.
Dry fire, so no actual firing.
Right, think of it as a really elaborate dress rehearsal. They load the HIMARS launchers onto U.S. Air Force C-130 aircraft, simulate a landing, then move them into firing position, pretend to fire, and then quickly move out again, all under a simulated time crunch, like they would in actual combat.
Wow, so they're practicing every step except pulling the trigger.
Exactly. It's about honing those skills under pressure.
And I guess it's a lot safer that way too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Safety first. Plus, it lets them practice those rapid movements and coordination, which are essential for high rain.
Makes sense. And the article mentioned U.S. airmen from the 86th Airlift Wing and the 37th Airlift Squadron participating too. It's really a joint effort, even within the U.S. military.
Oh, for sure. It highlights how important that inter-service cooperation is for these kinds of missions. And, it wasn't just the U.S. flexing its muscles. The exercise was also a big learning opportunity for the other countries involved, especially Belgium and Norway.
Right. The article talked about the international cooperation aspect, how they were all learning from each other.
Yeah, it wasn't just about the U.S. showing off its tech. The Belgian forces were actively involved in the targeting and communication side of things throughout the whole exercise.
Because they weren't just observers, they were active participants.
Oh, yeah, they were right in the thick of it, working alongside the U.S. troops. And then you had the Norwegian personnel who were there specifically to observe the HIMARS loading and deployment procedures. They were really focused on picking up any practical knowledge they could use to improve their own operations down the line.
So the Norwegians were there to learn how to do this themselves in the future.
Exactly. They were taking notes, so to speak. Senior Sergeant Alexander Brethen from the Royal Norwegian Air Force actually said, "We're here to observe how the HIMARS is loaded onto the C-130 so we can better apply that ourselves. Working with our partners like this is critical."
That's a really interesting perspective. It shows how seriously they're taking this idea of sharing knowledge and building up capabilities across the entire alliance.
Exactly. It's about collective strength. And Lieutenant Colonel Irwin also pointed out how this international collaboration really boosted the overall training value for everyone.
So everyone benefits from working together like this. Okay, so we've talked about the speed, the coordination, the technology, and the learning that went on. But if we zoom out a bit, what are the bigger strategic implications of an exercise like Thunderbolt Convergence?
I think the key takeaway here is that this exercise was a very realistic simulation of what a modern conflict could look like. It emphasized the importance of rapid decision-making, accurate targeting, and seamless communication between different countries and military branches, all of which are absolutely crucial in today's world.
And I guess that sends a pretty strong message, right? Not just to our allies, but to anyone who might be thinking of challenging NATO.
Exactly. It demonstrates that NATO is ready to act swiftly and decisively with a level of coordination and firepower that would be difficult to counter. It's a clear deterrent. And as Lieutenant Colonel Irwin put it, this exercise shows the real-world deterrence capabilities of the NATO alliance and the combat readiness of our forces.
So by showcasing this capability, they're hoping to discourage any potential aggression. It makes sense.
Precisely. It's about projecting strength and unity. So, for someone like you or me who isn't directly involved in the military, I think understanding this rapid deployment capability is important. It means NATO can respond to threats much faster and across greater distances than before, which could make a potential adversary think twice about taking any action.
So it's about preventing conflict rather than just winning it.
Exactly. Deterrence is a powerful tool. So as we wrap up our deep dive into exercise Thunderbolt Convergence, what are the key things to remember?
Yeah, let's summarize what we've learned.
Okay, so first, we saw how quickly HIMARS can be deployed thanks to the high rain concept. That's a game changer. Second, the exercise showed how well different NATO allies, the US, Belgium, and Norway, can work together, sharing targeting information and coordinating strikes over long distances.
And all of that really emphasizes the importance of speed and interoperability in modern military operations, right?
Exactly. It's not just about having the best technology. It's about being able to use it quickly and effectively with your partners. That's what makes a real difference.
So for you, the listener, I think understanding how multinational forces train together and how they work to improve their capabilities, like they did in exercise Thunderbolt Convergence, gives you valuable insight into the current state of international security and military readiness. It's important to know what's happening out there.
Couldn't agree more. And, thinking about this ability to rapidly deploy and coordinate precision fires across multiple nations and platforms, it really makes you wonder, what could this mean for future battlefield tactics and international military cooperation in a world where technology is constantly evolving?
Yeah, that's a big question. I guess we'll have to wait and see how things develop.
Absolutely. The future of warfare is constantly evolving, and it's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Well, on that note, thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.